It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Fireside Chat with 4 of our current students. So we have 2 graduate students and we have 2 undergraduate students. We were just talking a little bit before everybody joined us tonight. These are 4 students that are extremely near and dear to my heart. 2 are graduating, so I'm a little sad right now. I know students are supposed to graduate. We all graduated from Sargent. I'm so not ready to have them graduate, but they're going to come back as alums and join our world in just 6 short weeks. So first, why don't we start? So we have 2 Allies tonight. I did not do that on purpose. So for logistical purposes, we have Allie Davis, who I will refer to as Allie D, which she is comfortable with. And we have Allie Schlesinger, who I will refer to as Allie S. And then we have Will and Shannon. So Shannon, do you want to start off introducing yourself, let everybody know where you are in your education in Sargent, what your major is, and for Shannon was in Sargent, and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Shannon. I am in my first year of the entry-level occupational therapy program at Sargent, and I also graduated from BU in May. I majored in behavior and health and minored in psychology. And I also played on the field hockey team during my time in undergrad. And I'm from Perth, Western Australia.
Thank you for being here. Allie S., do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Allie S. I am from Parsippany, New Jersey. I graduated BU undergrad in 2016, and I'm set to graduate the BU PT program in May. I was on the track and field team and the cross country team for 3 years of my 6 at BU. And what's the other question?
Where are you from? Where was home?
Oh, home was Parsippany, New Jersey.
Fabulous. Will, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Will. I'm a senior undergrad majoring in human physiology. So I'm graduating this May and plan to attend PA school after that, after a little gap year in between too. And I am originally from Sellington, Connecticut.
Awesome. Allie D.
Hi, everyone. My name's Allie. So I'm currently a senior in the health science program, but I'm also a part of the BS and PH program. So this May, I'll graduate with my undergrad, and then next May, I'll graduate with my master's in public health. And I am from East Granby, Connecticut.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself. I have the chat open, so if questions come up that you have for our amazing current students, please feel free to type them in as the night goes on. So the first question I have is, let's start with Allie D. Allie, what classes are you currently taking?
So right now I'm in 2 of my master's classes. The first one is a health law and policy class, and the other one is more focused on community health. And then I'm taking an archaeology class just to fulfill some requirements. And my last one is a senior seminar for Sargent, and it's called Beyond Germs and Genes, and it's really interesting.
Shannon, what are you in right now?
I'm in all occupational therapy courses, so integrative seminar, and with that fieldwork, introduction to OT process, assistive technology, neuroscience, learning and behavior change, and evidence-based practice.
So hearing that list of questions makes me thank Shannon even more for being here tonight. It's that time of the semester where energy starts to go down a little bit because she only has a month left and she's a lot of work on her plate. Will, what are you in right now?
So currently I'm taking a neuroanatomy class. I'm also in a world religions class, which is pretty interesting. And then I'm also taking medical ethics right now.
Awesome. And Allie S.
I am out on my final clinical. I'm at Kessler Rehab in New Jersey on their neuro rehab unit, working with traumatic brain injuries and strokes. And I'll be there until June.
Fabulous. And then you take your boards and you're going to pass and hopefully work with one of our alums.
all those things. Well, hopefully never. I never want to see anyone at the neuro rehab clinic ever. That's my ideal world, is that everyone's okay and healthy and perfectly functional.
And we don't need you. Well, we always need you, but we don't need you professionally.
Please.
So now I want you to take a minute and think about, what was your favorite class at Sargent? And we can all kind of think about this as alums too in the back of our minds. Shannon, favorite class you ever took?
It's a class I'm in right now called Assistive Technology. I didn't realize, but coming into the program, I had a pretty narrow scope of occupational therapy practice. And it seems like every class I take, it's really pushing what our practice is and what we can provide. And assistive technology is all about providing different types of supports for people's meaningful occupations. So whether that's like wheelchairs or adaptive driving, or the last couple of weeks, we've been hacking toys to make them more accessible. So that's been really interesting.
That sounds fabulous. I wish we had something like that when I was in the PT program, but that was a long time ago. Allie D, what's your favorite so far?
I think it has to be organization delivery of healthcare, not just because it's your class. I'm actually the TA for that class now, but I think that I think everyone at the school should have to take this class because it teaches you the ins and outs of health insurance and all the crazy things about the US healthcare system. And every time we go through the syllabus, I just learn more and more, and it's one of my favorites.
I'm so thankful for you, as you know, and that you'll be with me next year too. Couldn't do it without your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will, what's your favorite?
I think it's got to be a tie between two: gross anatomy and exercise phys. So both of those classes, I think one of my favorite parts about it was sitting on the couch watching football on Sunday with friends and kind of showing off, like if an injury happens, I'll like speculate what muscle they pulled or something like that. So just in terms of application, I feel like those two classes I've used the most so far outside of the classroom.
Yeah, they're so real world, and it's awful. Like when you see somebody do a Lockman or an anterior draw, you're like, shoot, they probably just tore their ACL.
Yep.
Alias?
Hey, Will, who told you to watch football and go to the gym to learn anatomy?
You did in my lab.
So Will was one of my students in gross anatomy, and my favorite class that I took during undergrad was gross anatomy. And then I TA'd for it for another subsequent 8 semesters. So I think it's one of those classes where in the moment, same as Will, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that all of these things connect and like make the body work. But at the same time, it was sort of this like preliminary foundation for everything I was going to learn in the future. And as I went through each of my harder courses in PT school, I kept going back and realizing just how important that foundation was. Yeah, I absolutely love gross anatomy, and the privilege that we have at BU of working with cadavers during undergrad, which I came to find is just such a rare experience.
Yeah, we are so lucky. My office is just above where they stop for the BU prospective student tours. And I hear probably every 20 to 30 minutes, and now we're standing on the cadaver lab. But again, it is such a highlight of our tour because we're so blessed to have, we are one of the only undergraduate programs that has gross human anatomy with dissection with cadavers. That was probably mine too. So now you have a life outside of the classroom. So as an undergrad, as a grad student, did you complete any internships? Were you in any clubs? Did you play sports? What did your life, or what does your life look like outside the classroom? Will, do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. So it started off sophomore year. I kind of started looking around, looking up different teachers at the school, and I got involved with a type 2 diabetes research lab. And then I also do an atypical diabetes study with MGH. So those are research-based. And that one with MGH is really cool because it's a great intersection between research and clinical application. And then more recently, I started working as a CNA at Brigham and Women's Hospital. And then the one nearest and dearest to me, so through this class that I took last semester, the human physiology field experience, I got the opportunity to join the team at Spalding National Running Center. And so I work as a research assistant there. And basically what I do, I had so many different roles there, but we were working on a project studying foot strike. So whether you're landing on the front of your foot, the middle of your foot, or the back of your foot, and kind of correlating that along with joint angles and how this relates to various running injuries and the implications it has on the footwear you should be wearing as well. So I worked with the data analytics of that. I ran like the clinical trials of that along with some other people. And I actually just recently found out that our work is going to be published. So I'm going to be on that as well. So it was super exciting, such a great experience, and wouldn't have happened without that class. So very thankful for that.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I mean, to come out of undergrad, when people say, why BU? This is why BU. To come out of undergrad, with a publication is just, I mean, your hard work paid off. It always does.
Yeah, thank you.
Allie D?
So just a few things that I do outside of school. I am the vice president of the Student Nutrition Club. So I'm pretty passionate about nutrition and just living a healthy lifestyle. So I try to stay as healthy as possible. I run a lot and I compete. I'm a competitive equestrian, so that's what I do outside of school as well. I also had a internship at New England Baptist Hospital last summer, which turned into a per diem job. So I still work there about 2 days a week now, which is pretty exciting. And I'm also a TA for Professor Pestinelli, which is one of my favorite roles.
And can you talk about your upcoming internship? You were in a very great position where you were offered too many internships this summer.
Yes, so I had to call Professor Pestinelli and get her input because I was freaking out because I had these two great opportunities in front of me for this summer, and she actually found me one of them. So it was like trying to juggle which one would be best for the summer. But this summer I'll be working at Dana-Farber for their network operations team. They're opening a new facility in Foxborough, which is really exciting. And then in the fall, I'll be working at PFA, which Professor Pestinelli set me up with, which is a really cool organization that works to get insurance for Medicaid patients. And it's just really interesting. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Shannon?
With Professor Pestinelli and another Sargent alum, we did a literature review about slips, trips, and falls in the custodial population, and we submitted it to a journal, and it was recently accepted. And then in undergrad, I was on the field hockey team. I still work some BU athletics events, and I'm also the secretary of the Sargent College Student Occupational Therapy Association, which two of my classmates created last semester.
And Scarlett Key? I think you muted yourself.
Oh, I was just going to say yes, Scarlett Key as well. Thank you, Professor Pestinelli.
So Shannon won Scarlett Key last year. Allie S?
So I have to think back. When I was an undergrad, I spent a ton of my time with track and cross country. And then in addition to that, I TA'd for gross anatomy, which I continued into grad school. I was also a dean's host and a peer mentor for Sargent. So I'd get little freshmen assigned to me and I'd get to just tell them all the ins and outs of BU. I was also a peer mentor for the BU Physical Therapy Association, which I was a member of. When I got into grad school, I became the president of the Interprofessional Education Club. And most recently, this past year, our PT program finishes off with a year-long capstone project that we call academic practicum. So I did my practicum project on trauma-informed care for survivors of sexual assault. And I prepared a presentation to give at the APTA conference for Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, I think. And then I also presented that in service at my past 2 clinicals as well. So really loved researching and working on that. And during my time in undergrad, I was a part of the Undergrad Psychology Association. I minored in psychology, and I also dabbled a little bit in a neurobiology lab. And I think I got onto a PowerPoint in the credits section because the PI had discovered some gene that contributes to autism, or I guess one of the disorders on the autism spectrum. I didn't really do much because I was a freshman, but my name got on the PowerPoint slide, and that was how I figured out that I wanted to take more of a clinical path in life rather than research. So
That's awesome. I mean, it doesn't, like, not a day goes by where I'm not amazed at what our undergrad and grad students are able to accomplish and still like sleep and practice self-care. Just it absolutely amazes me. I want to dive into kind of some fun stuff now. We can all remember like where our favorite place to eat on campus was. So thinking back to freshman year in dorms, like what's the best cafeteria to eat at now? And then around campus, when you are like craving something, where do you eat on campus? Will, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So no doubt, Bay State cafeteria is definitely the place to be if you're eating on campus. They have such a good variety of foods. Pasta bar, which is my personal favorite. I think the pizza just tastes better there too. So they got a good variety, and I think everything's delicious there. And then 2 places that aren't technically like cafeterias on campus, but are like on campus. I would say one of them is Pavement Coffee House, because I run on coffee. And also I enjoy a good bagel in the morning prior to or just after like morning classes. And then T. Anthony's Pizza is definitely a go-to spot as well.
I'm so glad you said that and not Cane's Chicken. Not that there's anything wrong with Cane's Chicken, but every single one of us remembers T. Anthony.
Cane's is good, but I feel like you need to set aside like a whole day after eating that. It's like so greasy. You just need to like veg out after eating Cane's. So
Yes, and there's nothing better than T's.
yeah.
Shannon?
I would agree with Will about Bay State. It's 2 floors, it's beautiful. And aside from that, I really like Basho Express. I get lunch with a friend from undergrad every week from there, but I also spent a lot of time in West Campus Dining Hall and T. Anthony's for pregame meals during undergrad.
Awesome. Allie D.
Okay, so Bay State was my favorite place ever freshman year. That cafeteria is like literally unmatched. Like I would bring my friends there if they came to visit me, and they would be like so impressed. They would be like, "How do you live here?" So that's definitely my favorite. I love Einstein Bagels because before coming to BU, I didn't know it was a place, and I think they have the best bagels ever. And I also love Life Alive because you can go there and it'll be like a treat, but then you don't feel gross after like you would if you went to Cane's. I totally agree with that.
Awesome. Allie S.
I used to work at Life Alive. Great place. But I disagree with everyone. I actually think the West Dining Hall is the best one because it's a lot quieter, sometimes gets crowded, but the servers, like since most of the athletes live near the athletic facilities, which are on West Campus, they really like pile up your plate with all the food. So it's like Bay State, you go and the portions are so teeny. And there's also always just like ample warm cookies because all the athletes who knew what they were doing would kind of like sidetrack. If you didn't have time to eat a full meal before practice, you just grab a bunch of cookies for that quick glucose release. So there's always warm cookies and big portions at West Dining Hall. That one's my favorite. And my two favorite places for takeout, Noodle Street is right next to Sargent College. And so for late nights there, it's relatively cheap, like $10 for a huge thing of noodles. So that's my most frequented. But I also really love Basho, like Shannon, for a nice sushi burrito.
Awesome. So a question came in the chat that we were going to get to later on tonight, but now that it came in, I'm going to ask each of you now. So Brian's son is a sophomore and is really loving it. Any advice on how to best spend junior and senior year? So I'll give you each a minute to kind of think about that. Shannon, do you want to start?
Sure. If he isn't already, I would recommend going to office hours and really creating and cultivating relationships with the professors. If I hadn't gone to Professor Pessinelli's office hours, I don't know if I would be in the OT program here. So that's my recommendation.
Awesome. Allie S.
I would recommend figuring out kind of what your lifelong goals or passions are, and then really directing your time and energy towards chasing after those. So before everyone logged on to the Zoom, the five of us were kind of talking about like lessons that we had learned, which I know is a question coming later, but lessons we learned during undergrad. And one of my biggest lessons was to go to sleep, which I never previously did. But I guess once I figured out what I wanted to do with my life, and once I ironed out what would make me happy and what I needed to do in order to accomplish my goals, things just got easier, and I stopped spending all of my time on things that didn't need to be done. And I started spending more time on going to bed before 12 and enjoying my friends and reading books that I liked instead of just textbooks. So yeah, figuring out my goals really helped me to prioritize my time and cut out those little time wasters that really weren't making me happy.
So Allie D and Will, this is you literally right now. So Allie D, what advice would you give?
I agree with Allie. I think kind of stepping back and thinking about what you should really be doing with your life rather than just like studying and grinding and never relaxing. Like my roommates and my friends and I have really made it a point this semester to like enjoy ourselves. Like this is our last time to just be college students. So we started going back and doing things that we did freshman year, like going to the hockey games or trying to get people to swipe us into the dining hall and like all sit together and have fun. And it's just, we're trying to be more mindful of what's really going to make us happy. And like, I'm going to look back and remember all the fun times I had with my friends instead of what grade I got on a test.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things. I think really trying to find teachers that you relate with in terms of the way they present stuff in class, and then kind of inquiring more about what they do outside the classroom. Because I think kind of making those connections can lead to finding so many extracurricular stuff that you can do that will make you progress better and better to becoming an actual professional outside of like being a college student. So I think just making those connections can lead to so many different avenues. I think you find out more and more junior and senior year that the stuff you learn in the classroom is great, but it's starting to shift into the outside world. That's really the more important thing to start being mindful of. And then like Allie D said, just enjoy it. It goes by so fast, and you just definitely sometimes want to take a sec and put down the book and go enjoy the city and make some memories in that regard too.
Yeah, I think that was all four of you had amazing advice. And I had a student in my summer class a few years back who went to a more rural school. And she made a comment to me, to BU students realize how lucky they are to have faculty that are so well connected to the community to help students get internships or, serve on their research to get publications coming out. of undergrads. So I think that was great advice. Really, really, really get to know your faculty, and take advantage of being in Boston and all of the internships that are literally at your fingertips, and each and every one of you. Shannon, you've had internships. Will, you did. Allie, you did. Allie S, you did as well. I love it. You seem so much more put together than I remember being at that stage. Well done. Okay, favorite, where do you study? Where's your favorite? I remember where I studied. Where's your favorite place to study? Where do you study on campus? Or you don't? Where do you study? Well,
Yeah, so I think it depends. Sometimes I'm a homebody and I like just studying in my room. But when it gets distracting here, which it can sometimes, I'll go to Sargent study rooms, or I really like the photonics building. Not many people go there, and it's really quiet, and you can find like pretty big spaces that you can have all to yourself. I'm kind of a person who can't really sit still for too long, so sometimes I like standing like or walking around while studying. So having that extra space and kind of being by myself is definitely helpful.
that's a well-kept secret, photonics. I wouldn't have predicted that that answer. Allie, where did you study?
Most of my memories are from PT school rather than undergrad. I forget what I did I really have no idea. But during PT school, the third floor of the GSU was most common because there's PT practice tables there. And most people study in the cafeteria, like the main area of the George Sherman Union. So if you go up to the third floor, it's like this kind of little hidden room that's a lot quieter and nice sunlight too. But then off campus, my favorite was absolutely Lime Red down across from Star Market. And if I was in major depressive mode, then the basement of the science building, but that was like desperate times. Like we really just need to find somewhere. It's kind of dark down there though.
Allie D?
I'm kind of a hermit. I like to sit in my room and get all my stuff done. But during finals, if my friends and I really need to get out of the house or something, we'll try to find a room in CAS. But I agree, sometimes you have to go to the basement of the science building and it's pretty depressing.
Okay, in Metcalf, is that what you're referring to? So you go
No,
to
it's like if you go down the stairs, like
Yeah.
right when you walk into side, just I don't know what it's called, but it's pretty dark and there's this like odd tubing, and
Yeah,
like all of the tables have those whiteboard dividers, which seems nice, but then you end up just enclosed in this small space with no windows and you're kind of like, help me.
So most of us know that as Metcalf, what our students are referring to as the Science Center. So that for us was Metcalf Science and Engineering Building. Shannon?
I've also spent a lot of time in that dark basement. But that aside, I like the engineering library on Cummington. It's also really quiet and never really busy. Or the School of Hospitality is really beautiful and no one's ever in there.
Awesome. What is your favorite memory at BU? Will, do you want to start?
Sure. So actually two from freshman year, which is kind of surprising, but the first being when the Red Sox won the World Series. It was my freshman year, and we all like everyone on my floor just like ran out in pure excitement, and we marched all the way down to Fenway Park, and it was just unbelievable. There were so many people everywhere going insane. So I would say that, and then also lobster night at West Dining Hall, which I literally didn't know was a thing until like probably 24 hours before, and I just thought like this is so awesome. I was like bragging to all my other friends like we have a lobster night here. So I would say those two things were definitely I'll remember for a while.
That's awesome. Shannon, what's your favorite memory here?
My favorite memory is probably getting the email that I got into the occupational therapy program and that I had more time to spend in Sargent and in Boston. And I have a lot of that to thank to Professor Pessinelli, and also playing my last game for BU last year. It was a bit different due to COVID, so we couldn't really have fans in the stands, but after I got a lot of messages from people who watched the game.
We literally stood outside of the iron gates of New Balance Field so that we could watch you because we couldn't come onto the field. Allie, Allie D.
So this is kind of like Will, but freshman year when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, my friends and I skipped class. I'm sorry, professor, but we skipped class and we went to the parade, and it was just like my first big Boston outing, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And then another good memory was like this past fall when everybody came back from summer, and it was finally like COVID was kind of ending and everything all of everyone.
That's awesome. So you get to see like live in person David Ortiz and Tom Brady, like two of the greatest athletes ever in this city. Such awesome memories. Alias, what's your favorite?
So when I was in my first year of PT school, we had a class in the School of Education, which is kind of like shaped like a coliseum, I guess. Like the lecture hall is just really steep. And so it's pretty like all eyes are on the professor. And there was this one day that all of these random students, like it was a totally random day. There was nothing special about it. I think it was like a Wednesday or something. All these students kept interrupting our class. And our professor, Lee Marinko, she was getting really, really annoyed because it was a 2.5 hour class with almost every 10 to 15 minutes, just interruptions. So then after I would say like a half hour of this, some random guy comes like storming down the stairs and goes, "Who are you?" And Lee puts her hands on her hips, goes, "I'm Dr. Lee Marinko. Who are you?" And then the guy was just like, "Can I have a word with you for a moment?" and takes her outside. So it's all mysterious. So we're watching all of these people come into the classroom, all like, what's going on? And then this man stormed in. And of course, Dr. Lee Marinko was not having it. So like takes him aside. And then all I know is she came back out from the hallway and goes, "It's handled." And we just went back to class. So I guess what had happened was that she had requested a classroom change because our two classes were really far apart that we had to get to back. Her classroom change was rejected. And then another class was scheduled over the rejected classroom change. So that I guess someone else's class was supposed to be held at the same time as ours. And this was in like October or November. So it was enough into the semester where it's like, don't take our classroom. We've been here for 2 months. And Dr. Lee Marinko was not having it. It was just such a power woman moment. Like, "I'm Dr. Lee Marinko." And I have a recording of it because of course we all went online and screen grabbed the echoes. So I've like edited her voice into the Barbara Streisand song where it's like Dr. Lee Marinko. I've edited her voice into a Transformers video where it's like, "Who are you? Dr. Lee Marinko." And it's a joke that stands today and was well put out during skit night, which is my second great memory. It's a night where all of the third year DPT students, we went on Zoom this year instead of in person, but we just create a bunch of skits that poke fun at our classmates and our memories and our professors specifically. And Dr. Lee Marinko was plastered all over skit night.
That's awesome. I didn't know that happened, but I can so see her standing up, just hands on her hips, so confident as she should be.
Yeah, lots of memes made about that day.
That's awesome. Why did each of you choose Sargent? Allie D, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So I came in as a bio major, and I kind of picked bio because I knew I liked the healthcare side of things, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I was meeting with my advisor in biology, and I kind of just told them freshman year, I was like, I don't really want to be a doctor or anything like that. Like, I think that I'm not getting what I need out of the College of Arts and Sciences. And they directed me to Sargent. And I met with an advisor, and it was just like, as soon as I walked in the building, I knew that I belonged there because everyone was so welcoming and they want to help you. And it's just a great environment.
Will?
Yeah, so like Allie, I also came in as a bio major. And it's kind of funny that one of the reasons I switched over at first from bio to Sargent was I really did not want to take a language, but still wanted to stay like on the pre-PA track. But then once I got into Sargent, I think it was so exciting how diverse the classes are as well. So like once you kind of hit your general education requirements, the classes beyond that, like pulmonary pathophys and cardiovascular and those kinds of classes, exercise phys, they're so interesting and so unique to Sargent. Like you talk to people who have healthcare aspirations in other schools, and there's just not quite classes like we have here. And it's just very interesting. So I think that's what I like most about Sargent and why I joined.
Shannon?
I'm like Will and Allie. I came in as a bio major in CAS, and the end of freshman year, I knew pre-med wasn't for me, so I transferred into Sargent, and I also felt immediately like this is where I belong. BU didn't seem so big and intimidating anymore. I felt like I clicked better with the students, and the professors were really understanding, and classes were also smaller, so I felt like everybody really cared about me, and the community here is very supportive.
And Alias?
So when I was in high school, my biggest dream in the entire universe was to run for a Division I college. And I also happened to fall in love with Boston, and BU was a Division I college that would let me run for them and who also let me into their PT program. So that just seemed like a really great idea. And the decision maker for me, through track, I got to come on an official visit, which is basically like you just follow around a teammate for the day before you sign your letter of intent. And I followed around a girl who was in the PT program, and she brought me to one of Dr. Koh's human physiology lectures with her. And for those who don't know, Dr. Koh is an absolutely phenomenal lecturer. She's a tough professor. I didn't know her as a professor at the time. I knew her as just a lecturer. And it was a very interesting lecture about stress, and I was totally sold because apparently BU was the only place that I could get a lecture about stress. So, yeah, I fell in love with Boston and they let me in.
And then you became a TA for Dr. Koh.
I did, yeah. So Dr. Koh then switched. She was the first lecture that I saw at BU. I had her 4 times during undergrad because she happened to switch around each class that I needed to take my first year. And then she eventually transitioned to teaching gross anatomy. So when Dr. Shotland, my first boss, retired, Dr. Koh moved in, and it was just a really nice way to end PT school. Nice full circle.
Yeah, so nice transition. So a lot of us had Dr. Whitney Powers, who then, Dr. Judy Shotland took over, and now Dr. Liz Koh. But so interesting that Shannon, Allie, and Will all came in as bio majors. I want to talk now just a little bit about what was your experience as a student during COVID? March 2 years ago, almost to the day, when you heard during spring break that you weren't going to come back for 2 weeks, and then that turned into the rest of the semester. What was your experience during COVID? So let's start furthest away. Shannon, you went home to Australia.
I did. My parents and sister were in Boston because we were going to celebrate our 21st birthday together, and we found out we need to go home. So we went home, and there's a 12-hour time difference. And I thought I should still attend classes on Zoom live. So I switched around when I slept. So I had classes from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then we would have lift at 3 a.m. So I'd be outside by myself, like doing jumping jacks. And during that time, I also went to a lot of Professor Pessinelli's office hours.
Yeah, Shannon, I will never forget. She came almost every day and started our meeting with, "How are you doing?" I'm like, this is one of the kindest, most compassionate. Writing your letter of recommendation for OT school was actually like a dream come true for me, where I could just tell the world how amazing you were. So yeah, you were in Australia. Allie D?
So I remember right before we left for spring break, I was in infectious diseases, my class, and my professor all semester, he was tracking this virus, and he kept saying, "I really don't think we're going to have to worry about it. Like, it's really not a big deal." So I'm telling all my friends like, "Oh, there's nothing to worry about. We're fine." And then I remember the day before we left, he said, "Just so you know, like, I set up Zoom. I'm ready to use Zoom just in case." And I was like, what? You've been telling us all semester, we don't need to worry. So then when I got the email that we'd be online, I was like in total shock because I'd been telling everyone that we were going to be fine because I was thinking we were going to be fine. So it was definitely shocking. I was at home in Connecticut for a long time. And then I actually went and lived with my cousin. She had a baby. So it was kind of a way for me to get out of my parents' house and just live somewhere else. And I don't know, Professor, if you remember this, but when I was in your class, I was holding the baby in office hours.
You were babysitting. I'll never
Yes.
forget that. You're like, I'm so sorry, but I'm here with my cousin and she just had a baby. I'm like, Allie, someday if you ever decide to have kids, you will realize what a gift it is for you to just be able to take a shower. I'm like, you keep that child in your arms as long as you need to, and you go tell your cousin to stay in the shower as long as they want to stay in the shower.
So it was definitely an interesting COVID experience, but it was a good one, I guess.
Allie asks.
So actually kind of opposite as Allie D. In the PT program, there are a lot of international students and a lot from the continent of Asia. So I remember when coming back from Thanksgiving break, a lot of my friends were really concerned about this virus and their families, and all the professors and all of the news outlets and everything. Like, don't worry, not a big deal, far away, not an issue. But it was kind of like on everyone's mind. And then I guess like being removed from the situation, everyone kind of calmed down about it. But when when it came back around in March, I wasn't like super fully surprised. I also had a roommate in the Master of Public Health program who was concentrating heavily in epidemiology. So she was all talking my ear off about the news. And then I had another roommate who was an international relations major in the Pardee School of Business. So everyone was like, I guess, high alert, like warning me that something might happen, but no one was sure. But when Zoom school first happened, I really honestly needed it. In PT school, in grad school, it was like a nice, just like I could take lecture from my bed, which I soon very quickly found to be an ineffective strategy. But then once I figured out my strategy of actually sitting at my desk for class and taking my notes, not having that like travel time in between classes, I could have home cooked lunch in the oven while I was in class and not have to order takeout from my favorite noodle street. And if there was only an hour between classes, that was perfect time to do a home workout or like quick run to Fit Rec for 45 minutes. And you don't have to worry about like showering and getting back to class. So for a while, it was quite nice. And then when I transitioned to clinicals, so actually being in person and treating patients, I realized how much I missed out on being in person because PT is very hands-on and I wish I was there. So I went in waves of like, I really like this, I really don't. But now I like that it's brought Zoom into our lives and we can have meetings like this. And it's really awesome to not be in Boston, but still have access to Boston, things like that. So I like some of the changes that COVID has brought, but I mentally am so happy that the sun is out and restaurants are open and things are happening again.
Awesome. Will?
Yeah, so at first I was like, it was kind of crazy, like kind of like Allie said, coming back from spring break, I really didn't think it was going to be like much more than a week. So at first I was like, oh, awesome, like an extra week of spring break. But I was home in Connecticut during most of COVID, and I kind of too had those waves of like liking it, not liking it. It was nice to be home with my family, but I also missed obviously my friends a ton. And we obviously stayed connected during COVID through like FaceTime and stuff like that. But it took away a lot of like the college experience in terms of going out and enjoying that like social aspect of college. So that was kind of tough. But I didn't mind Zoom school. I agree with Ali S. Like I felt like my time management almost got better during COVID because I felt like I had so much time to do stuff and was able to kind of map it out better. And even just the fact that I could like get 15 more minutes extra of sleep because you didn't have to walk to class. I felt that was pretty beneficial, but I would say it was pretty good transition. The school did such a good job of like really kicking into gear, getting Zoom up and running, and still being very understanding about like submissions of work and getting things in on time, and also still allocating enough time for like office hours and things of that nature. So overall, I would say there were some good things to take away from it, but it was also a little unfortunate that we kind of lost almost a whole year of like the social aspect of college.
So my final question is, if you were to give yourself one piece of advice, your younger self, so think about where you were. For some of you, Will 4 years ago, Allie 4 years ago, Shannon 5 years ago, Allie 6 years ago. You just got your college acceptances, you put your deposit into BU. If you could give yourself one piece of advice going back to being 18, now as seniors or in college or grad students, what's the one piece of advice you would give your prior 18-year-old self? Allie D?
This is tough. It's kind of going back to what I said before. It's just like, I don't remember the grades I got when I was a freshman. Like, I don't remember that chem test that everyone was freaking out about in the moment. I wish that I spent more time, especially my freshman year. I wish I spent more time enjoying my life in Boston, just because of how lucky we are to have everything so close and there's always something to do. I think a lot of times I didn't go out and do things that I wish I did. It's like little things like a tree lighting in Boston. Like, I wish I went to that with my friends rather than spending those, I don't know, 2 hours studying, which I'm sure in the long run it really didn't do much for me. So I would tell myself to learn how to have fun sooner.
Shannon?
Mine similar to Allie's. Field hockey took up a lot of my time, and studying did too. So I'd say like go explore and experience and enjoy Boston. And aside from that, like I was really scared freshman year of messing up and like getting bad grades, but it's much more than that. And take every opportunity, and if not, make opportunities for yourself. Make this what you want it to be.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, I would say for me coming in, especially my freshman year, I struggled a lot with like time management. So I would say like in high school, I definitely needed a lot less time to prepare for exams and things of that nature. So it was kind of a little bit of a rude awakening, like college exams. So allocating my time better my freshman year would have definitely been more helpful. And then the other thing is, I think connecting with more teachers. I feel like I really didn't go out of my way to kind of walk up to a teacher after class, or go to extended amount of office hours, even if you didn't really have specific questions, until like my junior year. And I think it's the times when you don't have specific questions where you learn something that you didn't even think about, like you didn't even know you had that question, but then you hear about it in office hours. You're like, oh God, thankfully I came to this office hours. Or the other thing is, like like we were talking about earlier, the teachers are so well versed and well connected in Boston, and having advice on different career paths and different opportunities to get you to your professional goals. So in that regard too, I think just connecting with teachers as much as possible.
Yeah, I remember the first time you came and sat in my office. I'll never forget it. And here we are now. Allie S?
I have 3 mini advices that add up to like one total advice. But I guess don't study past 12 a.m. ever, which is actually a lesson I learned from my mom my junior year of high school, after I had like the worst panic attack of my life because I couldn't get all of my homework done. I was up to like 2 a.m. My mom was like, never again. So sleep before 12. Oh goodness. What was my other 2 advice? I don't remember my other 2 advices now. Let's see. it was very important to, oh, there are things in life that are important and there are things in life that are really important. So I would often find that like me and a lot of my friends would have this really big issue going on in our personal life, whether it's like a family member is sick or like a friend is struggling, something like that. And all we were worried about was the test tomorrow or the paper that was due in a week or the homework that we didn't have done or the reading that we didn't do that really no one was going to ask us about anyway. And so what I would eventually tell my younger mentors that I mentored through the peer mentoring program is just, you know, there are certain things that are much more important than school, and the professors always understand that. And then the third piece of the big advice is to find the joy in what you're doing. So again, with my gross anatomy students, I think like a lot of times they get caught up in studying. People are often taking like cardio, neuro, gross anatomy at the same time. And so people would get caught up in memorizing their flashcards. And I would always do my best to pull them back and be like, no, look at what you're learning. Look at how it translates. Like watch that person run down the street and you know exactly how that's happening. And then if they get injured, you know exactly how to help them. And that's really cool. You're not just studying a flashcard. And so all of those three advices, I guess, add up to find a purpose and go for it. And the purpose of life isn't to study to death.
Wow. What a great way to answer the last question. And I love the fact that you told Will to just go watch football. You can learn so much. Just
Try to be relatable.
Yeah, going and watching football. So I want to open questions up now to those that are with us, for Allie, Will, or Shannon, or everybody. You're welcome to either unmute yourself or type a question into the chat. Yes, I just have to say, like, I'm in awe of everything that you have accomplished. You know, Shannon in 4.5 years, Allie in 4 years, Will in 4 years, Allie in 6. I had Allie as a freshman in one of my classes, and I'll never forget young Allie. And I recently, you know, saw her on Zoom. I was like, Allie, wow, you grew up. And Allie, I remember seeing you in the first floor of Sargent, completely stressing out about a gross exam. I'm like, you're gonna do fine. And of course you did. Okay, looks like Brian had the only question. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Allie, Will, Shannon. I can't tell you how much this means to me that you gave us your time to share your experience. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You know, for Will and Allie, you'll be back. For Will and Allie S, this is not goodbye. You're now joining our, you know, alumni association. I hope that you'll stay active members and come back and be part of us forever. So thank you, everybody. I hope you stay well, and I look forward to seeing everybody at our next fireside chat. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.